Nebraska is preparing for a change in leadership.
Governor-elect Jim-Pillen takes office just 2 days from now. And Channel 8's Mackenzie Johnson was able to sit down with Governor Pete-Ricketts today and talks about his time in office. She joins us now here in the studio. Mackenzie?
Just today, the pictures in Governor Ricketts' office were being packed away as he prepares to hand over the torch to Jim-Pillen. Ricketts has served for the last 8 years through a pandemic and destructive flooding across the state. We spoke about what made his time as governor memorable. Obviously, you've come to the end of your time here as governor, so what would you consider to be your greatest achievement over your course?
Well, one of the things I'm very proud of is how our teammates here at the state of Nebraska have really improved services for Nebraskans. And then, of course, I'm very proud of our teammates and the way they responded to the historic flooding in 2019, the pandemic in 2020. All that, just really, they've done an amazing job. And then, of course, finally just getting the tax relief done, the historic tax relief we passed over the last couple of sessions has really been a great way to be able to return money back to the people of Nebraska and, again, help make sure they can live the good life here in our state.
On the flip side of that, what were some of the hardships you went through? You touched on a couple, like COVID and the flooding, so how did you deal with that?
Well, I think one of the key things when you look at the flooding, to talk about the pandemic or also the civil unrest that we had during the George-Floyd murder, everybody just came together to work together as a team to be able to really address some of those really unprecedented circumstances we've had here in our state.
And yeah, like you're saying, it, especially COVID, was a very unprecedented experience. And what was it like leading the state through a pandemic?
Well, there was no playbook for the pandemic, and that's, again, where you rely on your team. We had great people advising us, whether it was, creating additional testing resources through Test Nebraska, or our contact tracing, where we had hundreds of our teammates in the state of Nebraska volunteered to help out our local public health departments doing that contact tracing. And then, of course, we had special plans in place for at-risk groups, like folks in our nursing homes or in meat processing plants or in our correctional facilities.
Going into this upcoming legislative session, what sorts of bills are you hoping are going to be passing? Are there any that you've seen that are going to be coming up that you've maybe opposed in the past? What are you looking for in the legislative session?
I think the opportunity in this legislative session will be a couple of fold. One is tax relief. Also, with the strong state of our economy here in Nebraska, we'll have the opportunity to continue to invest for future growth. So things like broadband and making sure that gets to every part of the state. But also the Perkins County Canal, to build that facility to make sure we can protect our water resources going forward. Those investments will be very key to the growth of our state going forward. Looking
back at your whole career as the governor of Nebraska, what are some of the things you think back most fondly on?
Well, I got to tell you, my favorite thing to do as governor was to travel the state of Nebraska and talk with Nebraskans about what they were doing, their hopes, their dreams, what they were doing for their children, and it truly has been a privilege to be able to do it, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity that Nebraskans gave me to be able to serve them.
And his final message to the people of Nebraska as governor was simple: thank you. He says it was an honor to serve the best people in the best state for the past 8 years.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you for bringing that story you only see here on 8.